Okay. I'm just going to go back so they can see. Okay, we just went over this for everyone who's watching this recording, but I forgot to hit record. So it's gonna be how to create a program. And this is just the steps that you're gonna want to follow before actually starting the actual program. So I'm gonna take a second to look at this. Okay, now going into the type of splits that you can utilize for your specific program. So first, full body. You will only be doing full body if you're doing 3 days a week, anywhere 4 days and below. 4 days, you have other splits that you can implement. But 3 days, the best option for a 3-day split would be full body. Same thing for 2 days. If you can only go to gym for 2 days, then you will only be doing full body splits. That's because of frequency. You want to make sure that you're maximizing the amount of frequency that you're getting, that your muscles are being hit. So when you're doing 3 days, that means each muscle group, each movement pattern is getting hit 3 times a week, which is, again, you're maximizing the time, you're maximizing the stimulus with the amount of time that you can give. Then you can also do 4 days. That's my favorite split, is a 4-day full body split. So those are the full body things that you can do. Now for lower upper, you can also do this, and that would only be for 4 days or for 5 days a week. You can also do 6 days, but I think anywhere over 5 days is absolutely just unnecessary. So honestly, I would cut it at 5 days. The research says that when you're doing you don't need any more than 5 days. Truly, honestly, 4 days would probably be the best option to do. But it obviously depends client to client and issue to issue. But when it comes to lower upper split, you can either do this in 4 days, or you can split this up into 5 days. And what that will look like is, if you're doing a 4-day split, lower upper, 2 lowers, 2 uppers, and then 5 days can be 3 lowers, 2 uppers. You can also do a body part split. This is the split that usually bodybuilders do, or this is the split that usually when individuals first start going to the gym, they split it up like this. So you can either have 4 days in gym, 5 days in the gym, and then the split can be you're splitting everything up into body parts. Now, this is okay to do. I don't program this way only because I like to work with movement patterns, and I also like to maximize the frequency that you're hitting each movement with. So usually for a full body, or usually for a body part split, you'll be doing like glutes and quads, or glutes one day, quads a different day, chest and back, or splitting up chest, shoulders and arms, or something like that. You'll be splitting it up in that way instead of doing a lower upper. And then there's also a push-pull leg split. So with the push-pull leg split, there's either a 3-day, or you could do 6 days. So either you're just doing push-pull legs, then you're just repeating, or you're doing push-pull legs 6 days in a row. But again, I would not suggest doing 6 days in the gym. Usually this type of programming, the push-pull legs, usually for athletes. Body part splits are usually more geared towards bodybuilders. And then because they're really not focusing on the strength aspect of things as well. And then full body lower upper is the best for general population. But again, you can try out any type of split that you like to do. It does not really matter that much. What matters is the programming inside of it, the exercises that you choose, the amount of rest time that you're getting, and again, making sure that you are training close to failure and maximizing the time that you're in the gym. Okay. So after you figure out the type of split that you want to choose, then that's when we're going to go into movement patterns. And that's where we're going to break down the specific exercises that you can implement into each day. So movement patterns are going to be how you are going to actually set out your program and the exercise that are within. I do not program with just body parts. So I don't do a glute workout, or I don't do a glute exercise and a quad exercise and a hamstring exercise. I don't split it up that way. I do movement patterns because each muscle is going to be hit within these movement patterns that are here. So for example, a squat. A squat is a compound movement. So you're going to be hitting your quads, your glutes, you're going to be hitting your core, you're going to be hitting all of those muscles within a squat pattern. Same thing with a hinge, same thing with a lunge. So that's why I like to program with movement patterns instead. So within a squat, these are all the movement patterns you can implement. Now, this does not mean that every single one of these you have to hit every single day that you're in the gym. Again, this is also going to depend on the split that you choose. So I'm going to give you guys an example, but we're just going to go down the line of each one of these. So for example, squats, anything underneath squats going to be barbell squat, hack squat, shark squat, Smith machine squat, different forms of squats that you can implement. So you always want to write out the different exercise that you'd like to choose, and you could choose any of these exercises. It depends. That will completely depend on your preference, what you enjoy, what you generally like to do, and what does not cause any issue or pain. Then moving on to the hinge movement pattern. So hinge going to be in from RDLs, good mornings, single leg RDLs, 45-degree hypers, all that stuff. Lunges, any type of split squat lunge movement pattern. So split squats are going to be the stability split squat that I have you guys do, Smith machine split squats, Bulgarian split squats, curtsy lunges. Lunges and split squats do different things, but I just put in the lunge pattern. Lunge pattern is, again, a unilateral movement. Lunging is when you are actually in movement. Okay, so you're actually within the movement, which is why a reverse lunge, because you're moving your leg backwards. Curtsy lunges, you're moving your leg backwards. Anything where it says split squat, that means you are stable. Your other leg is not moving. You're staying stable and you're just going down and up. But then it obviously depends on how high your back footed is and all that stuff. But that's going to be the difference between split squat and a lunge, not the same thing. Then moving on to a bridge pattern, that's going to be all your hip thrust variations. Then moving on to a horizontal push. Horizontal push is anything where you're pushing horizontally. So that's going to be push-ups, any bench pressing movements, anything like that. Horizontal pull movements are going to be, again, anything that you're pulling horizontally. So that's going to be any row movements that I have you do horizontally pulling, cable unilateral rows, T-bar rows, dumbbell chest supporter rows, etc. Then going into the vertical push, that's going to be anything you're pushing upwards, vertically pushing. So that's going to be barbell standing press, any type of shoulder press that you're implementing. Then moving on to the vertical pull, again, anything pulling vertically down, pull-ups, chin-ups, lat pull-downs, supinated lat pull-downs, any variation that you're pulling from the top. Then last thing is going to be abduction. Abduction is going to be abduction machines, utilizing this part of your glute here, so that side area or that up here area, cable abductions, glute med kickbacks, all those things. So these are going to be all the movement patterns that you can take exercises from. So you always want to have like a list of exercises that you generally like to do within each movement pattern. So when you're creating a program, you can just decipher and pick which one and just implement it into that program that you have. So again, with movement patterns and how you're going to be able to program with this. So for example, if you're doing a lower upper split, so on a lower body day, the main things that you need are, you want a squat movement, you want a hinge pattern, you want a lunge pattern, you want a bridge pattern, and then some type of isolation or abduction movement. So usually anywhere from 4 to 5. You don't always have to add an abduction movement into that, obviously depending on the amount of days, but a minimum, I would say, of 4 exercises. You can go anywhere from 4 to 6 exercises. But again, you'll I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but the amount of exercise that you can do, it really kind of just depends on the specific split, but you should not be going anywhere over, I would say, 7 exercises maximum. 7 exercises is going to be more towards the full body. So full body exercises, you can have anywhere from 4 to 7 exercises, but when it's doing a lower upper split or a body part split or anything like that, just keep it to the 4 to 6. That's what I do. I usually don't give you guys anywhere over 6 exercises because it's a little too much and it's unneeded. 6 to 7 exercises maximum, nothing else, and you shouldn't even be able to get to anything else. If you are still having energy to do more than 7 exercises in your program, you're not lifting hard enough or you're not lifting enough weight. So I would say a maximum of 6, but 7 is a little bit pushing it, and you also don't want to be in the gym for freaking 3 hours. So yeah, so once you decipher the amount of exercise that you're going to put in, that's how you would kind of program for a lower upper split. And then for the upper body, again, implementing all of these. So horizontal push, horizontal pull, vertical push, and vertical pull. Those are the exercises that you are going to want. Those are the movement patterns that you're going to want to implement. And then you just choose an exercise from each of this list. All these lists, you just choose one exercise from each. Now, if you're doing a full body split, you can then condense pushing and pulling into one section, or you can still keep it like this. As long as you are hitting each movement pattern at least twice a week, then your program is set. Your program is good. So for a full body split, the way that I program is I look at all these. I have again, so if you're doing 3 days in the gym, that means I need to hit each of these movements at least twice, each of these movement patterns. So a squat pattern needs to be somewhere within these 3 days. A hinge pattern needs to be somewhere within these 3 days. Okay, but you don't have to add, you don't have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You don't have to have 9 exercises. That's way, way too much. So you would just put 4 to 6 exercises, but again, just make sure that each movement pattern is then aligned with, again, 2 times a week minimum. You can obviously go to 3 and things like that, because usually for you guys, if you guys are doing a full body split, I usually have you guys doing a bridging pattern 3 times a week. That's only because of glute growth, and I want to grow your glutes a little bit more. So that's going to be movement patterns and how you decipher that up. Next, we are going to go into reps and sets. So there's different rep ranges that you can implement, but I don't want you guys to be too obsessed with this. This has a lot of variation. So for example, there's a strength, hypertrophy, and muscular endurance, different type of rep ranges that you can implement, and different type of set ranges that you can implement. Now, with that, just because the rep ranges for strength is 1 to 6, that doesn't mean that if you only hit 5 reps of something that you're not applying hypertrophy, or you're not in a hypertrophy rep range. That's not at all. You want to be pushing close to failure. So when I tell you guys, when you guys are doing a specific exercise, and if it looks too easy, meaning if the movement's not slowing down, or if you're not shaking, or if it just looks like it's a walk in the park, that means you can get more. So I program with you guys the amount of rep ranges around, I would say anywhere from like 6 upwards of 15. So I work within all types of rep ranges. When you guys start to get into lifting heavier weights, or maybe if you guys want to go to powerlifting or things like that, when you guys start going to like 1 rep maxes and things like that, that's when you're going to go into that strength phase, or the strength rep ranges. So your rep ranges are going to lower down. So this is going to be completely based on again, like the intensity and the volume of the movement, and intensity, the volume of a specific day that you want to do. So if your phase is a hypertrophy phase, and that means that your volume is going to be a little bit higher, not super crazy, but the rep ranges that you would normally stay in would be like that 6 to 16, 6 to 15 rep range, just again to maximize hypertrophy and muscular endurance. But if you want to go more of a strength focused program, then the intensity, meaning the weight, is going to increase, and the volume is going to decrease, because you're not able to get a lot of volume with maximal load. So with a lot of load, it's going to be very difficult for you to reach over 6 reps. And if you can get over 6 reps, that means that you're really not that you're not in a strength phase. You can still be in a strength phase, but that just means that, okay, then you may need to increase the weight, or it's completely fine to stay there as well. So that's gonna be for rep ranges. So this is like the rep range kind of goals and ranges that you can stay within. But again, it's not set in stone. So just because you hit 12 reps of something doesn't mean that you are out of hypertrophy and into muscular endurance. It doesn't work like that. I just want you guys to make sure you guys are pushing close to failure, that the movement is difficult, and that is not a walk in the park. You never want your exercises to be easy. You never want your day to be easy. Sometimes obviously you're going to have days where you don't feel good, or whether things are just feeling super heavy, or you're about to get your period, or this and that. So that's fine, but you guys should still be trying to push close to failure. Not all the way to failure all the time, but close to failure. So making sure that you are reaching, I would say you will have maybe 2 to 3 reps in the tank left. Then we're going to go on to sets. So the amount of sets is going to be, again, dependent on the compound versus isolation movements, and also how much time that you have in the gym. Usually I don't go anywhere over 4 sets. If you're having a completely strength program, so if there's a client that comes in that just wants to focus mainly on strength and just increasing their numbers overall, then the sets may go a little bit higher, but the reps will be a little bit lower. So for the sets, you can have anywhere from 2 to 5 sets throughout your entire program. Usually for compound movements are going to be squats, bench press, movements that work, we're going to talk about that, but movements that work multiple muscle groups. So squats, hip thrusts, those type of compound movements, you can have anywhere from 3 to 5 sets, which is why you guys see and usually those are always programmed first. So compounds are always going to be programmed first. But again, we're going to talk about that in the next slide, but compounds are always going to be programmed first. And then those rep ranges, the sets can be anywhere from 3 to 5 sets. Then for isolation movements or anything after that, they can still be compounds, but if they are second or third exercise exercises, you can go down to 2 to 3 sets. But again, that's going to be completely dependent on how much time that you have in the gym and what you're willing to do, or how you want your program set. Okay, now going into compounds and isolation movements. So like I said before, compounds are going to be movements that you are utilizing more, multiple muscle groups, and then isolations are going to be where you're utilizing one muscle group. So an example of that would be squats, hip thrusts, lunges, deadlifts, bench press. And usually when you guys see in your program, if you're utilizing barbells, those are going to be obviously compound movements that you're utilizing those with. So that's why the sets are a little bit, that's why the working sets are usually 4. So you usually have 3 to 4 working sets of the compounds, and those are programmed first. Your compounds are always programmed first. Now, only sometimes I will have maybe isolation movements programmed first. Like for example, for Maria, she sometimes has struggled with knee pain, and research says that if you implement seated hamstring curls before squat, then it could warm up your knees a little bit more. So that's what I would implement for her. But that's client based, like very specific based on the person, but usually compounds are always going to be first. The reason why you don't want to put isolation movements, or you're not bugging out on the isolation movements before the compounds, is because you're going to tire out your muscles. And then you may not be able to get the same exact weight if you were starting with compound first. So always start with compound first, unless there's a specific issue that you need to address. Then you can swap some things around. But for a lot of you, for regular, you should just implement compounds first, then follow that up with other compounds and then isolation movements. Isolation movements are going to be anything where, again, it's working one muscle group. So glute med, kickbacks, bicep curls, tricep extensions, But everything else is pretty much compound movements that I have for you guys. So RDLs are even compound movements, lunge patterns are compound movements. I still have 2 to 3 sets of those in there, but those are still compound movements. So you still want to have a good amount of each, and you should have, I would say, anywhere from 1 to 3 compound movements within your program, and then 1 to 2 isolation movements within your program. That does not have to be set in stone, but that is that's what kind of the research says, and what you kind of want your program to look like. Like that's I can't think of the word for what I'm trying to say. But that's usually how somebody would program, is you have like 1 to 3, 4 compound movements, and then you follow that up with the isolation after. So that's what you guys can see in your programs themselves. Now, if you have a full body split, this is where this kind of changes a little bit. So when you have a full body split, sometimes isolation movements may be put on the back burner because you don't have a lot of time in the gym, and you're only going to the gym a certain amount of time. So you want to maximize that time that you have in the gym. So if you're doing less days in the gym, again, you want to maximize the allotted time that you have there. So usually you're going to be filled with compound movements because it's going to hit more muscle groups, and it's going to hit you a lot harder than if you're implementing isolation movements. But if you have a lower upper split, if you're doing a body part split, then you can implement more isolation movements because you're usually in the gym for a longer amount of time than 3 days. So if you have a 3-day full body split, and if you notice that you don't have as many isolation movements, it's because of this reason. Because again, you want to maximize the amount of time. You want to maximize the time you do have in the gym, which is going to be usually utilized with compounds. Okay, then moving on to rest times. So rest times are very, very important, guys. So rest periods are very, very important, and they should align with the specific goals that you have, or the specific program that you're wanting to implement. So rest times, again, it could be different for strength, hypertrophy, muscular endurance, but it's not like a make or break thing. I would say resting a minimum of a minute. Anything lower than that is kind of really unnecessary, unless you're doing like a muscular endurance type of thing, or sometimes we do EMOMs or things like that. That's where the rest time is going to be a little bit lower, but usually you want enough rest time to where when you do your next set, that previous set is not too much implicated, or that it's not negatively affecting your next set too much. And you should also need the rest. So if you're pushing hard enough in the gym, if you're pushing close to failure, if you're working as hard as you should be working, then you're going to need the amount of rest that you are taking. You're going to need extra rest time. So if you're doing strength, so in the strength rep ranges, in the strength phase that you're in, you can be resting anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. So strength movements are going to, again, be the first compound movement. So those squats, the hip thrust, the bench press, the standing press, incline press, those things with barbells, you're going to need more rest time because it's taking more out of you. You are utilizing your muscles a little bit more. You're getting more tired. So you need more rest time in order to finish those. And then hypertrophy, same thing, from 1 to 3 minutes. You can rest for a little bit longer, but usually 3 minutes is a good amount of time. So that's going to be your RDLs. That's going to be your, you could do different squat patterns within hypertrophy. But I'm saying like different, like RDLs or lunges, or if you're doing machine work, those are, you're not going to need as much rest time as if when you're doing like an actual barbell squat with a heavy load or deadlifts or something like that. You'll just naturally need more rest time when you're under those loads. And then when you're doing muscular endurance, that can be anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute long. And usually in your program, you don't really see anything that I have 30 seconds or a minute because I want to keep you guys in the hypertrophy, which is that building phase. I want to keep you guys in the hypertrophy strength phase. So that's going to be for rest time. But again, rule of thumb, that's the word I was looking for. But rule of thumb, I would keep between minute 30 seconds to 3 minutes. Nothing over that. Again, when you're getting higher in those weight, in your weight that you're choosing, when your form is solid and you're really pushing to get to a higher number with weights and trying to practice getting close to 80%, 90% of your 1 rep max, that's when your strength, that's when you're going to take a little bit more time to rest, or that's when you're going to need more time to rest. And then putting everything together. So I don't know why this is rent or mortgage. Maybe I didn't change that. Okay, but anyways, so when it comes to picking your split, so putting everything together, pick your split that you have. So the split that you are going to want to do, again, so if you want to do a full body split, lower upper split, body part split, whatever, pick that split. Then you're going to break down the movement pattern. So after you pick your split, then you're going to look at all the movement patterns, and these are the movement patterns you're going to utilize. Then you're going to take one exercise from each movement pattern and apply it to whatever split that you're having. So again, if you're doing full body, you're going to take all of those movement patterns, split the 3 bodies in half, and then make sure that, again, each one you're at least hitting twice. Same thing with the lower and upper split. Look at your lower day, one exercise from each movement pattern. And then you're going to do compounds, add in your compounds and isolation. So again, that's obviously going to be implemented with the exercise that you choose. There's different exercises that are going to be hitting one muscle group. There's different exercises that are compound movements. So you're going to want to make sure that you are also implementing the compounds first. So whatever movements that you're choosing, compounds first, followed by isolations after. Then rep ranges and sets. So figure out what rep ranges that you're going to want to stay in, but also don't be too hyper focused on the rep ranges that you're having, which is also why you guys see that I usually have a range of exercise that you should work with. So usually it's going to say reps anywhere from 6 to 10. So you should be working within this range. The reason why I don't have 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 12 only and leave it like that is because then in your mind, you are going to be conditioned to stop at that specific rep when you get to that rep. But if you can push more, if you can get more reps, then 100% do so, which is why I work in rep ranges instead of just 1 rep. Like I don't just do 3 to 10. I usually do 3 sets of anywhere from 6 to 10. That's why you see different numbers, because you should be either the movement should be getting a lot harder as you're going throughout the sets, or you should be increasing the weight to where you're not going to be able to get the same amount of reps every single set, which is the goal. And then implementing your rest time. Once you have that down, then you have a solid program. It's very, very simple. Don't try to overthink things again. And also it's a lot of hands-on and it's a lot of trial and error and you actually doing it and then figuring out this is what I like, this is what I don't like. There's going to be certain splits or there's going to be certain exercise couplings that you just do not like. There's obviously so much other stuff that goes into programming like supersets and trisets and blah, 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 all that stuff too. But there's going to be different things that you enjoy and different things that you don't enjoy. So if you don't like a specific exercise, then just switch out the variation. There's certain exercises and certain movement patterns that all movement patterns should always be in it. You just switch out the variation that you do not like. So for example, if you are not a fan of barbell RDLs, then do dumbbell RDLs. It's not that big of a deal, but you cannot not do a horizontal pull movement. You can't just take that out, because if you take that out, then you're going to have an imbalance. So you can, again, change the variation of something, but certain movements you're just going to have to do, even the ones that you don't like. For example, pull-ups, push-ups, those type of 2 things. Lunges, those things usually stay in your program regardless if you like them or not. Nobody likes them, but it is what it is. Those things you just have to keep in your program, but you can change the different variation. So if you don't like Bulgarian split squats, don't do Bulgarian split squats. Do rear foot elevated split squats. If you don't like those, do reverse lunges. It doesn't really matter. Just swap around the variation. So that way you can have more freedom. And then you really, again, can create your own program and see exactly, again, what you like and what you don't like. And then trial it out. give it a few weeks. You may love your program at first, you may not love it at first, but give it a few weeks, see exactly what you love about it, see if there's different things you can change or implement, and then and that's how you make a program. So that's how I program, and that's how you guys should program. Again, it's the same way across the board, but it's just going to be dependent on the split that you choose and how many days and all that stuff. So that's all I got for you guys. Do you guys have any questions on anything? Okay, no questions. I'm obviously, again, this is recorded, so if you guys didn't write anything down, I'm gonna put it in the chat. Once I load it up to YouTube, then I'm gonna put it on the chat, and then you guys can see, and then you guys can take a look at it, and and then implement that when we go into, eventually you guys will all be creating your own programs, usually closer to the end of our term together. That's when I will challenge you guys to create your own program, so again, you guys have some practice with it. So if there's no other questions, we will reconvene next week on Sunday. We'll have our next call. But other than that, do not forget to do your measurements and your pictures today. Any check-ins, make sure you implement those. But yeah, thank you guys so much. And I'll see you guys later. I love you.
Thank you.
Okay, babe.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.